Welcome to LDN ONT TV here on Rogers TV. I am your host, Bronagh Morgan, and I am pleased to be bringing really awesome stories about exciting things that are happening in Southwestern Ontario to our viewers every week, things that people are talking about. And in particular, this month, people are talking about Black History Month. So much to learn, so many fascinating people to meet, and we're so lucky to have a lot of guests on our show today. The first guest is Heather Reynolds. So Heather is a historian. She is a social worker. She's been in Oxford County now, I believe, 30 years. I read your biography, and you've been researching and writing about Black history, which is, I guess something that you're really fascinated about because you were surprised when you moved here about how rich the history is for this area. So welcome to the show, Heather. Share with us a little bit about your passion.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Yes, I moved to Woodstock about over 30 years ago to pursue my social work career, where I've retired from since. But yes, I found out about a friend showed me about the Otterville Cemetery, and I was surprised that there was a cemetery. I'm thinking in order to have that, there had to be quite a few population of Blacks in the area. And I certainly did not see a lot of people looking like me back in 1992. So I had gone to Woodstock, the archives there, and I met Mary Evans Smith, who had did a lot of work in Ingersoll for the census, and that's how my research started. So it was looking about Ingersoll, that they had a large population back in the 1800s, and then moved on from there. Visited the Norwich archives and learned about the Norwich Township settlements. So it's just a vast information. Again, something I was really surprised of. I never even heard of Norwich Township at that point. But yes, and just started doing a lot of research. And since then, local historian in the area, Joyce Pettigrew, wrote a book about that as well. So a safe haven. That's what that book is about Black settlements in Oxford County. So.
Right. So some of the things, obviously, you've learned about and you've also been writing about and teaching about over the years. One of the topics is the Underground Railroad or Underground Railway. And so I know that you're participating in local events, and I think a lot of the stuff is happening over Zoom this year for Black History Month, talking about the history. Can you tell us a little bit about the event that's coming up that you're participating in?
Yes, so the Ingersoll 50 Plus Center has asked me to do a presentation, and I'm doing the history of the Underground Railroad. It'll be virtually at 2:00 on Tuesday, February the 15th. And you can register on the London Black History Coordinating Committee website as well, and the link and the telephone number is available to register there. So what I'll be talking about is the Underground Railroad, and it's not underground, it doesn't have tracks, but rather it's a movement that consisted of loosely of constructed networks of escaping routes that helped slaves escape their bondage from the United States to freedom in the free northern states, and eventually to Canada, following the North Star. But in order to understand about the Underground Railroad, I do talk briefly about other topics such as the Middle Passage, Quakers, Harriet Tubman, the songs and routes of the Underground Railroad, as well as settlement in Ontario. So not all of Canada, but in Ontario. And hopefully people leaving that will have a renowned understanding of both the Underground Railroad and slavery. So, but yeah, so I think that's new. I think a lot of people didn't even know that slavery did exist in Canada. So again, that was something I found out in my 20s when my mom told me about a book that Dr. Daniel Hill wrote. And that's how I found out about that. So again, it was something that was quite intrigued to me at that time.
That's one of the great things about studying history is that you find out things about that you were really surprised about. And I see that you have like a lot of your articles and some information set up behind you as well. Can you tell us maybe a couple of other things that really surprised you when you really dove into researching the history of Black people in this area.
Yep. For this area. So my display is for the Underground Railroad. So when I talk about the history of Oxford County, that's on the other side. But yeah, so this is all about the Underground Railroad as well as the books. So I always illustrate the books. I talk about the Canadian books on one side, and on the other side of the table, I have American books talk about that too. But for this area, I think for me, I think the most thing would have been the population in Ingersoll in the early 1800s. Of 1,000 people, there's about 500 people that was there in Ingersoll, and that I think to me that just blew me away. And that was again the research that Mary Evans Smith had done when she did the census. So for me, that was the biggest thing. A lot of the families in Ingersoll are still there. Unlike when you move over to Norwich or to Otterville. A lot of the families are no longer there. So some of them have large families, like the Williams family in Norwich. They're buried out there, but none of their children remained in the area. So, but yeah, so I think for me that was it. Ingersoll and Woodstock, they still have generational families as well compared to the other areas.
Now, I know, it's great that we have this event coming up. For those people who either can't make it to this event or come to, are able to listen to your talk and maybe want to learn more, can you point us to some great resources that we can use? You're talking about some great books that you have learned from. Yeah. And I know you have a wonderful website as well.
Oh, yes. Yeah. My website is Heather's Historicals, and I list a lot of the things, even from your local library. This is a wonderful book, The Hanging of Angeline by Dr. Afua Cooper. That's in the library. Anything about Harriet Tubman. And I found out attending another presentation from Christine Lord last week that there's a Black library in, I think it's called the Black Community Library in London, and they just opened up in February as well. So that's another place to get a lot of resources. Again, visiting the site of the London Black Historical Committee, they have a lot of events that's coming up. The Ontario Black Society website, Natasha Henry is the president there. If you follow anything by Dr. Afua Cooper is great. Dr. Rosemary Sandler, again, is another person too. Dr. Sandler has a book out on Harriet Tubman, Freedom Seeker and Freedom Leader as well. And I think Dr. Cooper just has another book that came out that she co-wrote with someone else talking about the Underground Railroad and Harriet Tubman in Canada. So there's a lot of information. And a lot of people who certainly know their stuff and in doing that as well. But yeah, and I think one thing with being virtual, I'm able to access things from the States that I would never even hear of or be aware of. So I think on the downside, that's one of the things that be able to participate in. And I have I think Eventbrite, not that I'm advertising a lot of things, but Eventbrite does have a lot of, I'm not getting sponsored for them. Eventbrite does list a lot of these events. If you just put in Black history events, and they have, a lot of them are free. And again, it's another source of information. People are just starting off in this, or, to learn something new about that as well.
Well, thank you so much for all that you do to make this information accessible and to help, lifelong learners like me, people who are just really interested in diving into the history of Black people in this area in Ontario. So we're going to have to take a break. Thanks for being with us, Heather Reynolds. But stay tuned for more LDN ONT TV.
This program is brought to you by the following sponsors.
Carbon monoxide is a deadly gas you can't see, smell, or taste.
Homes with fuel-burning appliances and/or attached garages must have working CO alarms installed outside all sleeping areas.
Don't let the silent killer get you. Install working CO alarms today.
Night's action on Rogers TV.
I'm sure right now a lot of you feel like you aren't able to be who you truly are.
What's most important, more important than everybody else knowing who you are, is that you know who you are.
As a young person, time moves slower for you. And just know that things will get better.
It Gets Better Canada is a registered Canadian charity with a focus on uplifting our queer youth through the power of digital storytelling.
As a Two-Spirit person, I use they, them pronouns, but that's not the case for every Two-Spirit person.
There are so many voices out there that we didn't have 10 years ago, 20 years ago.
No matter what your mind tells you, you really are perfect the way you are, so stop beating yourself up so much.
I'm gonna be a boy in a dress, because why not?
Your identity is explosive.
We all have our unique journeys, but one thing that connects us all is the desire to be happy, the desire to celebrate being our authentic selves.
ONT TV here on Rogers TV. I'm your host, Bronagh Morgan, and now we're joined by two more guests to talk about some very interesting things that are happening here in our city of London. Don Miskelly, who is the executive director of Fanshawe Pioneer Village, and Harold Usher, who you probably know from London politics, who is part of the steering committee on a really exciting project that there's some fundraising going on right now. And I think you're going to be really interested in all of the logistics behind relocating and restoring the Fugitive Slave Chapel. It's currently on Grey Street, I believe, in London. And the goal is to relocate the entire building to Fanshawe Pioneer Village to become part of that amazing community treasure. So maybe we'll start with you, Dawn. Welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about the project.
Certainly. The building was offered as a gift to the village last spring by the British Methodist Episcopal Church, who are the current owners of the building. And they really felt that the village would be a better location to preserve the building and help to promote and share the rich history that it has for the Fugitive Slave Chapel, as well as to provide education to the community about the involvement of London in the Underground Railroad. And we really want to be part of that to help make sure this important piece of London's Black history isn't lost.
Absolutely. And now, so Harold, you've been involved with this project. I'm not sure how long the restoration efforts and the initiative to actually relocate the chapel has been going on. Can you tell us a little bit about your involvement?
Well, it's first of all, it was the building was built in the 1840s, the latter part of the 1840s, as a chapel. That's where the name came in, and it was built by and for the then Black community who used to live at the forks of the Thames in a location called the Hollow, and they used it as a church, as a chapel for about 12 years, and then they used it as a residence. And recently, a few years ago, the owners of the building decided that they wanted to demolish it. And we decided that the Black community wanted to save it. So the church, the BME church, decided to take it over and move it from 275 Thames Street to 452 Grey Street, where it's sitting right now. Well, they tried to do something with it and they haven't been very successful. And that's why they decided to offer it to the Fanshawe Pioneer Village. That is it in a nutshell. The Black community is very, very interested in preserving this edifice because it's piece of the history of London, the piece of the Black history, piece of the history of the Underground Railroad, and therefore piece of Canada's history.
Absolutely. And so the relocating, I guess there must be some plans in the work. That's got to be a huge undertaking to even imagine like relocating a building, but it sounds like it already happened at one point. So how is the building, in terms of its shape right now? What's involved in getting it to Fanshawe and the restoration work? It sounds like a huge undertaking.
Yeah, we want to make sure the project is successful. So that's why we've kind of launched the fundraising side of things, because we want to make sure we've got the money to make sure it all happens and happens in a timely manner. And so the building where it currently sits unrestored is really in a greater risk situation, because it's starting to have the effects of the weather on it, and it's sitting unrestored. So we'll make sure that it's stable before we move it. And that process will involve some structural assessment, I imagine, before we we get it on a moving truck. But we've reached out to get some preliminary information from the company that had moved it before. And so we'll undertake that process when we get to that stage in our planning.
And then in terms of its relocation to Fanshawe, how does this building with such a rich history that Harold got into a little bit fit into the educational part of the Pioneer Village?
Well, it really aligns well with our mission. Our mission is to connect communities by remembering and sharing and celebrating local histories. And bringing this building here will really help us include more voices in the story we share here at the village. Given Harold mentioned it was built in the 1840s, 1848 kind of time period. So we'll locate it to that era in the village, because our village interprets history in a chronological time period. So it'll go into that time period in the story we tell. But it really does align well with our mission, and we're really excited to be able to share more voices here at the village. And when we get to the programming and interpretation, that's where we're really going to be partnering with our community partners, because we want to make sure that this is interpreted authentically.
Brother, ultimately, I see this as a part of Southwestern Ontario's history. This is a piece of the total history. This will fit in as London's portion of that area, along with places like Uncle Tom's Cabin and other places of such down in Leamington and Chatham and so on. It will not be just one building sitting there. I don't see it as one building sitting there. It will be for some people, but it will form a tourism aspect of the whole region for Black history.
Absolutely. And not just during the month of February, but all year round. The opportunity to learn more about the shared history of this region is so important. Can you tell us, because we just had a great conversation with Heather Reynolds as well, who's a historian from this area. Can you tell us maybe something that our viewers might not know, or something that was surprising when you've been diving into the history of this area that you learned about this chapel in particular, or maybe some other opportunities that we might have to educate ourselves?
Well, let me just start before Dawn. I see this building as a building that was built by Black people way down in that era. I see this building that was used as an area where fugitive slaves coming out of the United States along the Underground Railroad found aspects there where they could hide or save themselves or sleep overnight for a couple of nights and so on, attend services and move on. Because that's what the Underground Railway was. It was a movement from one border to the next. And when I say from one border, I'm saying maybe from Detroit to Niagara Falls, sort of along that entire. So when I talk about Southwestern Ontario, I'm talking about the entire area, and there are many other buildings that are used for tourism. And people will want to see, let's learn a little bit more about this moving history. It was not just fixed. It was not just here in London. It was not just in Leamington. It was not just in Chatham. It was not just at Uncle Tom's Cabin. It was the whole area. And this is one piece of that entire history.
And so much more than a building, it sounds like. So,
exactly.
So when you're in the chapel, like I am assuming both of you had a chance to visit, give us a sense of like what it's like to actually be a part of that history.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Harold.
So eerie, because I've been in there, and when I'm in there, I feel like I moved myself way back to the 1850s as one of the people who used to attend service there. I mean, I'm a church goer, so when I go in there, that's the way I feel. And But just looking on the outside, you could see the shape of it, and you know that it was a church. It is a church. It was built for service. It was built to worship God.
So Don, for those of us who want to get involved with helping with this restoration project, I think there are probably ways that we can access that information on the website for the Pioneer Village.
Yes, there's a couple of different ways that are very easy to get to it. So if you go to Fanshawe Pioneer Village's website at fanshawepioneervillage.ca, www, or you can go through right into the London Community Foundation and search up the Fugitive Slave Chapel or the Chapel Project Fund, and it'll link you both into ways to give. There's a fund set up right at the Community Foundation where all the fundraising from individual donors is being compiled so that we've got it all there and ready to go when we're ready to go with the project.
Really exciting project, and something I think that we're all looking forward to seeing work out, because it's such a, it really is a London treasure, Fanshawe Pioneer Village, and just to have another fantastic aspect in it. Thank you both for all of your volunteering.
The Black community is all involved with this, by the way. We're all behind this.
Fantastic. It's great to know. Yeah. Excellent information. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing. And we're going to have to take another break, and we'll be right back with more LDN ONT TV.
This program is brought to you by the following sponsors.
After a night out with your friends, not having a plan for a safe ride home can leave you in a bad spot. You could end up riding in a police car, an ambulance, or a hearse. These unplanned modes of transportation can be a costly choice and do not take you home. Your plan could include a designated driver, a taxi, or public transit. Drink responsibly, choose your ride, and have a plan for a safe ride home.
Visit arrivealive.org to find out more.
For more information about the vaccine and eligibility, visit healthunit.com. To book an appointment, call the number on your screen or book online at covidvaccinelm.ca.
Jeff from Chillin' and Grillin' with Jeff. We're back for season 3. We've had the opportunity to see some great backyards and have some great barbecue. Join us, Chillin' and Grillin' with Jeff.
Welcome back to LDN ONT TV. I'm Bronagh, and I'm joined by, as usual, a fascinating young person. We usually end the show with a conversation with a member of the younger generation or the youth community, and today we have a really inspiring one for people of any age. Gabriella has actually published in the last year 4 books. So Gabriella is a published author. Her works are on sale on her website and in many locations all over the place. Welcome to the show, Gabriella.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So 4 books in 1 year. That's something that, many people, I'm a writer too, and that's just astronomical in terms of like how you can achieve something like that. Talk to me about what your passion for being a writer. Can you tell me like why you got into this? What's cool about it? What's fun about it? Some of the challenges.
Well, I always liked writing. I don't really know why, but I just thought it was kind of cool how each book takes you to like a different universe. And so that's why last year I decided to write my first ever book of my bilingual book series, A Link Between Two Worlds, Un Lien Entre Deux Mondes. For me, writing is really fun because I just like how the story unfolds and how everyone can get different perspectives from the way they read it.
So fantasy, I think, is the genre. Mm-hmm. Is that like, I guess, what you would call it?
Yeah.
Okay, so what is it about fantasy books? Were you inspired by any other authors or book series that you read to get into this particular style of writing?
No, as long as I can remember, I always liked fantasy because the fact that another world could exist out there with magic and stuff is really cool to me. So that's why I decided to write a book inspired by that.
So the books that you have written over the last year, are they all part of a series or are they standalone books?
One is a standalone called A Twist to Destiny, and the other three are part of my bilingual book series, A Link Between Two Worlds, Un Day Entre Deux Mondes. And I also have a new book that recently came out called The Survival of the Glitches, Survivre au Problème Technique.
And so that's part of the series, or that's a separate book?
That's a separate one.
So can you tell us maybe about some of your favorite characters? Are they inspired by people that you know, or does it all just come out of your imagination?
Well, for my bilingual book series, one of the main characters, Aurora, wasn't really based off of anyone. It was kind of a little bit based off of me, but less shy. And the other ones, they just came from my imagination.
Fantastic. So obviously you must have been really busy. You're school-age person, so you have other things that you have to cover while you're getting all of this writing done. For people maybe that are seeing somebody like you and they wish that they could get into writing, but there's also a school to look after, how do you manage all of the things that you have to do?
Well, it depends. If I have lots of work to do, I'd probably wait till I'm done that work and then write my stories. But if I don't have too much work, well, then I would write my stories at the same time.
And do you find does it feel like work when you're writing, or is that kind of like the time that you're having fun?
It's the time that I'm having fun.
Do you have people that help you with your writing? Do you have an editor? Does your family help you out with it? And how do you kind of run your ideas past people?
Well, no one really helps me except for the publication stage, like when the editors review it and see if there's any errors. But for the most part, it's just me.
And have you got any feedback from young people that have enjoyed your books? What have you heard from people who have read them?
Well, on Amazon, when I was reading some of the comments, there was this one girl that said that her daughter really liked my book, and that made me happy.
Thank you so much for being with us today, Gabriella. Really inspiring. I feel like I better go take some time and do some writing as well right now. And our viewers, thank you so much for being here and meeting some fantastic Londoners in Southwestern Ontario, people that are doing amazing things in the community. Hopefully you'll be able to join us next week for more great stories here on LDN ONT TV. Thank you.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
Sometimes it's hard to say goodbye to an old friend. But when you're saying farewell to your vehicle, Kidney Car makes it fast and easy. Just call or visit our website. We'll take any vehicle in any condition and give you a tax receipt for a minimum of $300. No headaches and no towing charges. It's the one-stop solution for getting rid of your unwanted vehicle in just a few short minutes. When your vehicles reach the end of the road, call us toll-free or visit kidneycar.ca.
Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Mario Elia, and I'm the host of a new show here on Rogers TV that we're calling Keeping London Healthy with Dr. Mario. I'm a local family physician here in